Good morning, everybody. I'm Larry Weissoon. If you enjoy real-world hunting and fishing talk, you're really going to enjoy listening to my good friend, Luke Clayton, and his guest for the next hour.
This is David Fox, and welcome to Outdoors with Luke Clayton and Friends. Luke has been a recognized outdoors writer for the past 3 decades and writes for a host of outdoor publications. Luke pens a weekly newspaper outdoors column that appears in over 40 Texas newspapers. Luke is on the pro staff of Pyramyd Air, your one-stop shop for everything air gun related. Smokin Tex electric smokers and AGM Global Vision, maker of an awesome line of thermal hunting scopes and spotters. Feel free to contact Luke through his website, catfishradio.org. Now let's join Luke and his guests for this week's show.
Thank you guys for that nice introduction, and Mr. Weissoon is right here with me. I think back from globe hopping over in Finland or somewhere over there hunting white-tailed deer. We're going to talk about that later, Larry, but you and I had one heck of a fun hunt just recently, didn't we?
We did. I'll tell you what, I got to spend a few days with the Cotton family, and they're close, not far from where you live, actually, and we were very fortunate you were able to come down for an evening meal, and you and I got to hunt together a little bit, saw a nice little buck and all those good things, and then Rick Lambert was down as well, too, and most people from our part of the world know who Rick Lambert is because he's a dear friend, but you know, most other people know him as Miranda Lambert's dad, I guess. But what they probably don't know is that he's a very serious hunter, and besides being a great entertainer and all those other kind of things. And to be honest with you, when you left that night, I was wishing you could stay the next morning because Rick and David and I went out, and every time I hit the horns together, I had bucks coming in, and knowing that those bucks were always going to circle downwind of the sound, what I did is I had them set up either in a blind, sitting on the ground. And the last one we rattled up, we were in one of their ATVs, and I told them, so you guys just sit right here, and I'll walk out here about 150 yards or so, and I'll rattle, and I'm going to put that buck right between you and us, or between the two of us, rather. And lo and behold, the good Lord and deer provided that just to the exact specifications. And David and I have rattled up a little bit, rattled deer a little bit in the past, but he'd never seen many bucks come in. And then Rick, in all the years that he's been hunting, he's hit the horns together a time or two, and it didn't work. And so when he got to visiting later, he goes, that's the first time I've ever seen a whitetail buck rattled in kind of thing. And so I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that's pretty good deal to have happened. So, and we'll talk about Finland a little bit later. That's a great area, and people don't realize probably that whitetail deer were introduced to Finland back in the early 1900s, and kind of the same thing down in New Zealand. And I've hunted a little bit there, but all I saw was does. This one was a little bit different, and of course, there's a lot of tradition involved, and I was over there with a couple of great friends as well, too. So they happen to be members of DSC, and I need to mention DSC very quickly for conservation education, hunter advocacy. And of course, they're going to they being us, have their convention January 9th through the 12th at the almost said Hutchinson Center there in Dallas, but this year, because of the tearing it down, we have to go to Atlanta to the World Congress Center, and got a lot of great folks there. The guys from Stealth Vision that you and I use a lot of, they're going to be there. Hornady courses there every year with their accurate, deadly, dependable ammunition, and Mossberger's going to be there this year as well, and got a lot of other folks. What I didn't tell you is that preparatory to some of the rattling that we did is I'd put out a bunch of VINEYARDMAX in some of those areas, and that kind of, I think, attracted some of the does. So we talked about doing some of that in the past, and I can tell you it works.
It obviously works. Yeah, we saw, you mentioned one buck, one mature. He wasn't a shooter that we would shoot over there at our friends the Cotton's place, but he was a good-looking buck. And then we had a couple of, I think, 2 or 3 smaller bucks kind of working the fringe of that area that we did see. So we saw several bucks coming in, when you and I got to hunt together that evening. But
right, exactly.
Yeah. And then I tell you, hate to jump the gun too far ahead, but very shortly, let's see, a couple of weeks, we're going to get to go up to southeast Oklahoma together and the Choctaw Nation. They own the Choctaw Hunting Lodge up there. Dusty Vickery and his wife Nicole run that fine operation, do a great job, and we're going to be up there, maybe get us, if any luck at all, get us a big old Oklahoma buck. We were both there. You know, last year, Larry, when we were up there, I think our deer weighed, I think yours was 205 pounds, and mine was 204. Big old heavy deer up there, you know, live weight I'm talking about. So, boy, I'm fired up about that. It's just that time of year when, good gosh, there's so much. And if I were just hunting the back 40 close to home, I think I'd be just as excited, Larry. You know, it's just something about this time of year and having the opportunity to get out in the field and get with friends and get some venison in the freezer, you know?
You bet. You're exactly right. I'm fortunate. I've got to hunt so many different places, and this trip to Europe after those white-tailed deer that have been introduced there, and I will tell you that had I not been totally committed to going on that trip, when those bucks started coming to corn there in the north part of Texas and northeast part of Texas particularly, I think I might have canceled, to be honest with you, because I dearly love rattling that bucks. But then I thought, oh, you know, I was told nobody's ever tried rattling in over across the water, and so I thought, well, maybe I better go do that. But gosh, I sure was tempted just to call everybody and say, hey, I'm going to stay in East Texas. The time is right. And knowing that about the time that I finished up with it, the rut's going to be going strong out in the western part of the state as well too. It's right before it actually starts out there, about before you and I get together on Choctaw. And I'm going to get to hunt with my brother this year. My brother and I hunted bunch together years ago, including going to Colorado, New Mexico, and hadn't had a chance to do that. So I've got him coming out, and right about the time when the bucks are coming to horns out there, and then hopefully we'll add a few more pounds of venison from that, and then, as you mentioned, going to the Choctaw, and I'm really looking forward to that as well too. I've got some old friends coming in, like Jim Bequette, who you've met, and new guy named Dr. Mike Arnold. That both those guys are going to get an opportunity to meet while we're out there, and with Dusty and Nicole. And so, gosh, you talk about a great time. I think those bucks there may still be coming to horn when we get there. We're certainly going to give them that opportunity.
You bet. Well, for consolation, Larry, while you're over there wearing that loading green, you know, hunting over there with the with the European folks, think about old Luke. I'll probably have a Woolrich black and red jacket on, sitting back in the brush over here at the Cottons, tinkling those horns together, and hopefully, I'm gonna try to film it for our TV show, A Sportsman's Life, that's on Carbon TV. I'd like to also invite our friends that may not be aware of that. Folks, Larry and I and Jeff Rice, our good friend, for several years. Jeff and I have been doing it for a bunch of years. Larry's been with us, gosh, now 4 years, I guess, Larry. And
yes,
and we do a weekly outdoor show that's on Carbon TV. It's called A Sportsman's Life. You can find it there. It's also on YouTube. Not so many people watch it on YouTube, but a lot do. You can seek out A Sportsman's Life. But I'm going to try to film some ducks. I've got the time. I'm only 40 minutes from where we were talking about, the Cottons, our friends over there, so I can be there in no time for an morning or an evening hunt and then come back home. But I'm going to try to film some of those bucks coming in close, Larry. Who knows what's going to happen, but I'm going to give it a try, and if the right one comes out, well, you know, that Stealth Vision scope has got that 6.5 PRC dialed in. I've got it all dialed in. I might just have to shoot one, by golly, you know. I need some venison, you know.
It's like we're talking about. It's that time. Of course, almost everything we do, we film as well too, and a lot of it's filmed, kind of self-film, so we get what footage we can. Mm-hmm. And of course, we're going to be doing the same thing in while I'm across the water over there. Two of those guys are also hunting what they call elk, or what we would call moose, and so I hope to get a little bit of that, and then do the same thing when my brother's down. I'm going to try to film him while he's, you know, caking a deer, and then you and I'll be working together there on the Choctaw. And then, man, after that, we've even got some more stuff coming up as well too. So all kinds of good things, and you know, just wish everybody that the best of hunting season. Get out there and hunt. Don't look for excuses not to go hunting. Go hunt.
Yep.
Spend time around the campfire and tell a few stories and make some memories out of all that's going on right now.
That is great counsel. I've got to tell you, you know about it, Larry, but I was doing, I was doing an article, but I was doing a fishing trip and a fun one up at Lake Texoma with our friends, Bill Carey Striper Express. And the article was for the North American Outdoorsman. Bill Broad's one of his publications, and it was a giveaway. And a couple of guys, one from Damien was his name, from Baton Rouge, and one from Douglasville, Georgia. They were winners. Kyle was the actual winner. Yeah, and Anton was his last name. So we had an awesome striper fishing trip, got back to the dock, and Little Dave, who was our guide that day, I fished with Little Dave first time 29 years ago. We figured it up. But Dave guides for Striper Express. We caught a bunch on, not a bunch. We caught about 4 big ones on topwater and then limited out with live shad. So we're back at the dock, and Dave says, MT, that's their office manager, caught a 70-pound blue cat right here in this boat slip 2 days ago. He said, I got the rod over there, and he had a striper rod, but he had it rigged up a 25-pound big game, I think, line. And set up with a good stout hook, and so had some cut shad, had plenty of shad left over. Baited up with some of that shad. I dropped it down, and wham, immediately that line just disappeared up under the dock. Well, I jerked back to set the hook on a false set. The fish had already dropped the bait. I dropped it right back. I put another fresh shad on there, dropped it right back down, and wham, I hooked. Mine wasn't 70 pounds, but it was 45 pounds.
My goodness.
And that's at a boat slip there at Striper Express back at the dock there. And that rascal ran the same direction. It might have been the same fish. Who knows? But I said, I'll never get him out of here because, there's all kind of brush and stuff under copy brush, tractors, everything. That fish, he hung up, and I just kept a pressure on his head. I could feel that big rascal shaking that head down in there, underwater, way down in there, So I just kept pressure on him, and he finally got that head needled through that brush coming my way. And as luck would have it, he stayed out in that open boat slip and did his fighting. And
really?
Yes, I never had him hang up again, and I don't think I've caught some bigger catfish than that, but that was a male, a blue fish and catfish. That thing was the hardest fight, maybe other than a shark on the coast that I've ever hooked.
Oh my goodness!
So I got some real good pictures for that article too. Yeah, I wanted to throw that in, Larry. Not hunting, but it's a little fishing talk, Yeah.
Well, we need both.
We gotta have it.
We love doing both.
That's right, Larry. Well, we'll get back with everyone next week. I do appreciate you being with us, and we'll talk some more hunting stories when you get back next week. How about it?
You got a deal, sir.
Folks, this segment is made possible by Ultrimatic Feeders. Go online to ultrimaticfeeders.com and check out the most awesome line of game feeders in the world. I've been using these things for 15 years, and I've got one that's been in the woods about 10 or 11 years. I forget exactly how long. Check them out, ultrimaticfeeders.com. Folks, I want to tell you about an awesome destination down at Lake Tawakoni. It's Wind Point Park. If you love the outdoors, if you like camping in an area, I bet I saw 60 deer. I was in there recently touring the place, went fishing down there. It's some awesome fishing, camping, long-term RV rentals overnight. There's some beautiful cabins, some bigger cabins and littler ones right there by fishing. You can walk out the door and fish at some of those places. But the place is neat as a pin. It's been around for 10 years, Wind Point Park. If you haven't been down there in the last 10 years, it's all remodeled and just beautiful. So check it out online. I think the website is windpointparktx.com. Of course, you can just Google Wind Point Park, Tawakoni, and pull it up. But I want you to know about it. You're going to be hearing old Luke talk about the fishing down there a lot. I've already done some bank fishing there, so you can catch a lot of blues, and you can also catch a ton of channel catfish along those rocks. Another thing I want to tell you about, VINEYARDMAX. The website is vineyardmax.net. They make an awesome line of game feeders, fish feeders. They're just an awesome product, but they also have a deer attractant. That's what I really want to tell you about. It's called VINEYARDMAX. It's made from dried, hammer-milled grape hulls and wheat bran, I think it is, or, ground up wheat, and also some corn chops. So it's got stuff in it deer like, plus it's got that scent of grapes that we've used it. Larry and I have used it out in West Texas where a deer have never seen a grape and had them come in on it. So check that out, and the website again is vineyardmax.net. Folks, this segment is made possible by Smokin Tex electric smokers that I've been using a long, long time, CatfishPro catfishing baits and catfish supplies, Ultrimatic Feeders, and AGM Global Vision, maker of the spotters and thermal scopes that I hunt with. Well, friends, it is now trophy blue catfish time down at Lake Tawakoni. All other lakes that's got blue catfish in it down the south and southwest. David Hanson is a longtime good friend of mine, and he has for a long time guided for catfish on Lake Tawakoni. David, I want to tell them, set the stage here, buddy, and I appreciate you hanging in there with me for a minute. But folks are listening that probably don't know where Lake Tawakoni is,
Yeah. It's, over the years it's gained more popularity, but back when I first started guiding, I could go to the Bass Pro Shop. They'd ask me where I fish, and I'd tell them, and they wouldn't know where Lake Tawakoni was for nothing.
Exactly. But for folks in Texas, they probably know. But the thing is, people are listening after our fine radio stations run this, listening on a podcast everywhere. So, folks, Lake Tawakoni is, in my opinion, the premier catfish lake of the southeast, southwest. It's located about an hour east of Dallas. David, let's concentrate on trophy blue catfish. Now, you and I both know that you can catch a great big catfish anytime during the year. But right now, say November, December, January, February, March even, is when you target those big ones. And as well as the boatload of what we call eater ones, 2 to 10 pounds. But
absolutely,
I've got some questions, and I already know the answers because, folks, I fished with David for the last quarter of a century. He is the most veteran guide out there at Tawakoni for catfish, no doubt about that. Been doing it a long time. When you're wanting to fish the deeper humps, David, you probably, in past trips with you're not necessarily spot locking or anchoring back in the old days on a particular hump all the time. A lot of times you're drifting, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And with that drifting technique, there's several ways to do it, but my way, I prefer to put the nose downwind, put the drift socks out, put out, some planer boards and a couple without planer boards. And of course, I already have scanned the area, and there's fish down there.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to drag through there and pick those fish up, here and there, and sometimes 2 or 3 at a time.
Yep, I remember many, many times what you and I have done just that, and of course that's how you make your living in the winter and summer fishing for these catfish. Drift speed are the drift, and the folks, a drift sock is just like a parachute that you put down in the water that slows the boat down. If for those that might not know what it is, but you don't always have to have a drift sock, do you? If the wind is lighter.
That's correct. On days that it's really calm or just 5 mile an hour wind or something, you can put those rods out and use your trolling motor, keep your boat straight, and just to ease along there enough to keep your line spread and do the same thing. But I have found in the years past that those flat water days don't produce as well as the choppy days.
David, I just finished an article for Fur Fish and Game magazine, and I mentioned that fact. And the article was about bank fishing, fishing off the bank.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, wind is your friend. I mean, it really is.
Yes.
The flat dead calm days, I'm not saying you can't catch catfish or stripers or whatever, but some wind, not a gale of wind, but 5, 10 mile or 12 mile an hour wind is a huge help in this winter trophy catfishing, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the chop to me makes things more active. Your bait's moving better, and the fish are chasing them, and then that's in deep water situation. And then you go to the shallow water, and the waves are beating on the bank.
Mm-hmm.
The fish are up there, little fish, big fish, eating that debris and shad and stuff that are up there feeding on that. So you use that in your arsenal, let's call it.
Yep.
Exactly. When you market them fish deep, you go out there and you drift for them. When the wind blows 2 or 3 days consecutive out of the south, start looking shallow.
And a lot of times on our past trips, David, we've done this. You and I have. You think cold water, deep 20, 30 foot. Well, that sometimes is the case, but not always at all. Not always. A lot of times you've locked us down in fairly shallow water and then cast up, a lot of times up to a point, something that the wind is pushing the bait fish into, or sometimes maybe a tree line in water that's not 20 foot deep. It might be 10 or less, right?
Right. Absolutely. And now that we've got the spot lock, it makes it, where you can pull out there, especially on those no wind days, and you can sit right on top of those fish and drop it in your mouth. And, that has really helped in a lot of ways. But, I still prefer to set up in shallow water and catch those fish in 2 to 6 foot of water. That's my preference.
Me too. It's more, to me, it's more fun. And this is something else I've learned from you in years past. After a hard freeze, we usually have 1 or 2 hard freezes in North Texas, in the winter, but that creates a shad die-off. It's gangbusters. The biggest catfish period that I ever caught was with you years back, a 53-pounder, and that's when the lake was low and we were fishing water 3 foot deep, and up against a north bank with a south wind, using a fresh shad. And if you've never caught it doesn't have to be 53 pounds. It can be a 25-pounder. Some of those smaller male blue catfish, I think, pull harder than some of the big ones. To be honest with you,
absolutely.
This big old fish come and jump, look like a porpoise out there in that 3 foot of water. But that is so much fun, so much fun.
It is.
And then David, people like me, I've caught some big blue cats. I have. And I still, who don't like to catch a big fish, but I also, given the choice at my stage of the catfishing game of catching a bunch of good eaters and filling up some freezer bags with those snow white blue catfish fillets, I'll probably opt for that rather than go out and catch 150-pounder. But I bet a lot of your clients are of the same mindset on that,
Oh yeah. I many times in the past, we'd be catching the eating size fish like you're talking about, and I'd look at them and say, well, y'all want to move and try to catch a bigger one now? Oh no, we're just fine with this. We don't want. We'd rather do that.
Those are my friends. I don't even know them.
And the thing is, I've got a trophy trip, but on most of the eater trips, especially this time of the year, you still catch a big fish.
Yeah.
And there's no way to say we're not going to catch a 50-pounder today.
No,
we're not going to do that. And you're out there catching them 2 to 10s, and next thing you know, you got one screaming drag.
Yep.
And you got a Hawks on there.
Exactly. That's Tawakoni. That's when you have a hook and a line in the water that will hold a big catfish. You better have one that'll hold a big one, because chances are real good you're going to catch one. Along the lines of the article that I just finished for Fur Fish and Game, This is something that I did years ago, but Wind Point Park out there is a prominent point that goes way out in the lake, and a couple of days of south wind blowing against that, all the bait and food up there against that bank can be really good blue catfishing. And I haven't had a chance to do it. I did go out and we caught a bunch on, the punch bait off the dock, the pier there at Wind Point Park, a bunch, small ones. But I would sure like to, if you get you a day off or something, get out there with us. And if I know you're a guide, got your guide boat and all that, but it is sure fun to catch those rascals off the bank and spend a few hours out there sometime during the right time, I guess, after a day or two of strong wind, and get out there with us and catch some fish. Maybe even have a fish fry out there,
That sounds like a winner to me.
we just need to plan that. I will mention that, David. Wind Point Park is an awesome place out there for catching channel catfish off the dock, the pier. Throw out some range cubes and put you some Tony P's punch bait or whatever down and hang on. But I'm so excited about getting out there for the big blues. I've got the rigs, those CatfishPro rods and reels. I've got, just like you use, I've got 4 of those. And I've got some rod holders. I built me a couple of rod holders, and I've got a couple of those commercial ones to stick them down in the dirt, and then they'll hold the rods up. You probably could scratch up one of those at your place if you looked hard.
I got a few of them probably.
I bet you do. Well, David, thanks so much, buddy. It is trophy cat. We're talking about trophy deer time during the rut. Well, trophy blue catfish season is here. And, David, I'd like you to connect people with you that they might be listening anywhere on a podcast or all on the radio. If they want to come out to Tawakoni and catch some fish with you, the best way to contact you?
You can reach me on my cell phone anytime at 903-268-7391.
Okay, and friends, remember this, any of our guests, the name of this show is Catfish Radio with Luke Clayton and friends, and many of these folks are great friends of mine, but if you can't track them down anyway, just send me go to catfishradio.org, and there's a deal. Email Luke, my email address, send me an email. I promise you I'll hook you up with them. David, I'm ready for our next catfish adventure, and maybe it'll be off the bank this time. What do you think?
Well, sounds like a winner. I'm always ready, and with the conditions the way they are, it could be on anytime.
Folks, let's talk a little outdoor cooking. Let me tell you about an electric smoker that I've been using for 15 years, I guess. Smokin Tex electric smokers. If you're tired of staying up all night keeping that wood fire burning when you're barbecuing, give Smokin Tex a try. They're made to last a lifetime. You can check them out at SmokinTex.com. That's SMOKINTEX.com. Well, friends, Mr. Larry Weissoon is going to tell you about the finest hunting optics that we have ever found.
Look, these are called Stealth Vision. They come from Crockett, Texas. Dr. John McCall developed them. They're 34-millimeter tubes as opposed to the narrower tubes, so more light transmission. They have a little green light that comes on when that scope is leveled, because that's when you want to pull the trigger. They have an optional lighted reticle as well, too, and a whole lot of other products, and folks can learn more about them by going to stealthvision.com.
And for seasonings, anything to do with outdoor cooking, all kind of jerky seasonings, sausage seasonings, Butcher Packer Supply. That's butcherpackersupply.com. I think the website is butcher-packer.com.
This segment here is brought to us by the Choctaw Hunting Lodge up in southeast Oklahoma, owned by the Choctaw Nation. Pyramyd Air, your one-stop shop for everything airgun related. Well, friends, we have talked a little fishing, but it's hunting time. It's deer hunting season, so we can't stay away from the topic of deer very long. Well, I've got a guest here, a good friend of mine, Mr. Joe Cunningham. Now, Joe, I met through Stealth Vision, the maker of the scopes that you hear me and Larry Weissoon talking about all the time. If there's a better scope known to mankind, I have never found it. But we want to talk some deer hunting with Joe. Joe, thank you, buddy, for being with us.
Hey, Luke, it's my pleasure. Absolutely anytime, my friend.
Well,
look forward to getting you back down to Crockett sometime soon.
You dang right. Me too. I look forward to getting down there and meeting, visiting with you and Doc and the crew. I learned a lot from Joe, friends. Joe is an expert. I mean, if there's something about a scope he don't know, I I don't know what it'd be. But we put he mounted one of the Stealth Vision scopes on my 6.5 PRC. The one that I happen to be shooting this year, it's a Cascade, and I tell you, Joe, I was amazed. I have shot, and as I was telling you, I'd shot long range. To me, long distance was, I think, 600 yards. I went through a shooting school 5 or 6 years ago, and that's as far as I shot. I shot shooting a 270, which is just a standard scope, and I could hit the gong at that distance with it. I learned that, but with this Stealth Vision, it takes this long range shooting to a different level. And I'll say this. And I've been shooting a rifle since the Marine Corps days when I was a whippersnapper, and way before that when I was shooting squirrels in the back 40. So I've shot rifles all my life, but you guys with that Stealth Vision take it to a different level. I mean, you had me hitting, what was that? 1,200 yards?
We were shooting out to 1,200 yards, Luke.
1,200 yards. And it's kind of funny, Joe, and we'll get into deer hunting in a minute, but folks, me and Joe always have a good time visiting. But it's funny. I was watching everybody shoot. I don't think I ever even told you this, but it's the truth. So I was watching everybody shoot, and you had targets set up 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 1,200 yards. 1,200 yards is a long way down there, friends. So I'm sitting there watching. I was the last one to shoot, if you remember. And I thought, you said, and I could prominently spot that 1,200-yard target because it was up high, I knew where the 1,200-yard target was, But I wasn't real sure I could pick out that 800 or it sounds a little silly, I know, but I wasn't real sure I could find that, differentiate the 8 from the 10 or whatever. So friend Joe said, well, okay, Luke, you want to start, you already had the data already shot in on that rifle.
Oh, yeah.
This was one of y'all's custom rifles. They sell custom rifles, friends, with the scopes, and these things they're the cat's meow. Anyway, you said, okay, Luke, you want to shoot? I was ready to shoot. You want to start at what, 400, 600? And I said, I want to shoot to 1,200. Yeah. Well, what I didn't tell you was that I knew where that 1,200-yard target was, and I'd watched these other guys. I knew that the rifle was dead on, so I don't know. You kind of looked at me like, well, maybe you ought to start at 6, but 1,200. The reason for it being, now the rest of the story. So I shot that, I don't know, 2 or 3 times. Of course, I couldn't tell. I wasn't looking through the spotting scope, but you said, yeah, you got it. You clipped it this time. I think I hit it 2 or 3 times. And
right around that bullseye every shot, I think, Luke, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, but here's the thing, Joe. You get that rifle, we're shooting off of a dead rest. I call it a dead rest. It was solid rest. It was very solid rest. The trigger on that rifle that you sell with the scopes was just perfect. I don't know what it was, 2 or 3 pounds pull, just perfect. A dead rest. I wasn't worried about me squeezing the trigger and doing all that stuff right, and I'd already seen those guys hitting that thing. So, I got
little pressure on you, Luke.
No, it wasn't. I felt more comfortable with that than I would have shooting trying to pick out one of those other ones, But anyway, those scopes, you collected the data on tell us how you go through that process on just before you have the turrets burned in to fit. Yeah.
Well, the main thing when I start on these is getting the barrel broke in just right. And by doing that, I shoot it enough to where I shrink the muzzle velocities to where they're within, 10 to 20 feet a second difference. out of the muzzle.
Mm-hmm.
And once that barrel settles in, what I do, Luke, is I zero the guns at 200 yards. Unless somebody wants 100-yard zero, I can zero it at 100 yards for them, or 300 or 400. Just depends on what the customer wants. But for the most part, I zero everything at 200 yards. And then to collect the data, I'll increase that. I'll shoot 400. I'll shoot 600. I'll shoot 800, 1,000, and 1,200. And every one of those targets that I'm acquiring now, I'm doing this with an MOA turret on it. So I'm writing down the MOA clicks for each one of those targets. So I'm morphing the drag of that bullet from 200 yards all the way out to 1,200 yards. So what I have to write down every time before I start is I write down the temperature it is, I write down the elevation it is, and then I'll collect the muzzle velocity and get the average muzzle velocity, and then continue to go all the way out to 1,200 yards doing the same thing. Now, once I've established that and the gun is consistent at each target that I'm acquiring, I take all that information, I write it on a piece of tape, I put it on the stock of the gun, and then I'll send that to Terry, our machinist, who burns the turret. He wrote this program to burn the turrets to match that data in MOA into a yardage turret. So once he's done with that yardage turret and he's got it burned, and that's establishing the numbers all correctly on that turret, we'll take the MOA turret off of the scope, and then we put the yardage turret on it. So to simplify things, what that boils down to is, let's say you take your gun out and you range something at 775 yards. You dial 775 yards. We have an internal bubble level in the scope that illuminates green when it's level. Once you get that green, you pull the trigger. Game over. Your big 12 points laying on the ground.
Get the gambrel ready and the meat pole. It's time to hang a deer. That's right. That's exactly. And what happens? Of course, the turret that was burned, if you will, that was mailed to me, and I basically just. I'm no machinist, if you believe that. I just screwed it on there, and then I went out and shot. We could shoot where I was at. We could go out to 600 yards, which again, friends, is a long way. It's half of 12, but it's a long way. Yeah.
Now, what we do with all of our custom guns, Luke, not with factory guns that some people, send us to do scope mount jobs and collect data, but with all of our custom guns, we're guaranteeing half minute, which is 6-inch groups at 1,200 yards all the way out. And basically what we've done, to put it in a nutshell, is we've simplified the shooting to let that hunter have the success at shooting that trophy at 600 yards, 800 yards, 1,000 yards. But it's all about confidence and going out there and practicing also.
Yes. Yes.
You want to go out there and practice your trigger pulls, your breathing, and everything. The gun is going to do it. I promise you that. We guarantee that. It's within the hands of the guy who's shooting the gun. And we have shooting courses, shooting classes that we do. If anybody's interested, they can always get a hold of us, and we can set something up ahead of time, and they can come and join us here at the ranch. You
bet. It's a great place, and just very relaxed place to go, friends. Out of not far. Well, down. I actually, if folks listening to a podcast after this runs on all the our wonderful radio stations, it becomes a podcast on iHeart, Apple, and all those. People from out of state wouldn't know where Houston County Lake is, but you just look at that, and then the Doc's place there where you shoot is just real close to Houston County Lake, isn't it?
Yeah. Doc's main house is on the lake, and then the ranch is about 15 minutes from his main house. And we can set people up to stay the night here a couple nights if they want to. We'll feed them, take good care of them. They'll have absolute blast, and they're going to shoot. They're going to shoot better than they've ever shot, and they're going to shoot guns better than they've ever shot.
I've been there.
And hopefully they buy the guns.
That's right, and the scope. The scope. Yeah, right.
Yes, sir.
And I can say this: these scopes, these Stealth Vision scope, friends, and I have a tendency to say it like I believe it. these scopes are the best. You cannot find a better scope than these. And I get it too, Joe, that everybody that's deer hunting is not going to be shooting a deer at 600 yards. I'm not, for one.
Correct.
But the rig that I've got is capable of that. But I'll probably be out leaning against some tree or maybe not the best solid rest out of a deer stand or something. But for the ranges that I shoot, you're talking about a confidence builder, knowing I could hit a tight group out there at 1,200. A 300-yard then becomes like a chip shot, you know?
I know, Luke. And, it's not just about the long range with our turnkey systems. It's also about precision. So if you've got a 200-yard shot and you've got to thread it between this little bitty gap, you'll have the confidence to do that with these systems once you shoot them. And it's all about building confidence and knowing when that hunter or person or lady is going to squeeze that trigger, you're going to hit exactly where you aim. Most people, Luke, when they come out here and stay with us and go through a little shooting school and courses that we do, they've never shot past probably 200 or 300 yards. And when I tell them they're going to start at 500, their eyes get all bug-eyed.
Yeah.
And then they're hitting bullseyes. First shot, second shot at 500. I said, okay, it's getting kind of boring here, isn't it? And they'll say, yeah. I said, let's go out to 800. And then it's just, I mean, the excitement and the satisfaction you see within them when I do this is so gratifying to us, myself, Doc, and whoever's here.
Yeah,
it's totally gratifying to them.
It is.
They leave with the confidence that they want and an excitement factor within themselves.
You bet. You know, Joe, we kicked usually when we're visiting, we have a tendency to I have a bad tendency to ramble. Maybe it's not a bad thing.
I do too.
I promised that we were going to talk.
Page.
We're going to come back, folks, after our break with Joe Cunningham. I promised you we're going to talk about deer. Joe is his home is up in Missouri, so big old deer up there. We're going to talk some deer hunting. Let's take a break. I will remind folks, these scopes and custom rifles that Joe's talking about, stealthvision.com, right, Joe?
Yep, and they could, you know what, if anybody's interested in participating or a gun, I'll give you my work cell number, Luke, is 936-222 3841. Feel free to call me.
Awesome, Joe. You stand by, and we're going to talk some deer hunting after the break. How about that?
You bet. I look forward to it, Luke.
For about the past decade, I've been hunting editor for Airgun Hobbyist magazine. I think the only magazine devoted strictly to airgun shooting and hunting in the country. Well, in that length of time, I've learned quite a bit about big bore air guns and smaller calibers too. A spot to go to that if you're interested in air guns, you need to know about Pyramyd Air. The website is PYRAMYD, PyramydAir.com. They have anything and everything you need, from the guns themselves, the big bores or the smaller calibers, to the accessories. Just remember PyramydAir.com, and there's a number when you get on the website if you need to call and talk to somebody. Give them a buzz, and they can fill you in on little details that you might need to know about shooting or hunting with big bore air guns. While you're on the website there, I'd like you to check out the big bore air gun that I've done a great deal of hunting with. It's the Seneca Dragon Claw, 50 caliber, pressures up to 3,000 psi, and it looks like a conventional rifle. Wooden stock. I think you'll like the appearance, and I know you'll like the performance. It shoots not only bullets, but also air bolts as well, tipped with a broadhead. Check it out. It's the Seneca Dragon Claw.
The snowflakes fall as winter comes, and time just seems to fly.
Friends, this segment is brought to us by CVA Muzzleloaders. In my opinion, the very best muzzleloaders in the world, the ones that I shoot. You can check them out online, CVA.com. AGM Global Vision, maker of the Rattler and the Adder that I use. You can check them out online too, AGMGlobalVision.com. Kuby's Wild Game Processing and Kuby's Restaurant in Dallas. And VINEYARDMAX, maker of some awesome deer attractant and some very fine game feeders and fish feeders, located down in Nacogdoches, Texas. Check them out at vineyardmax.net. Well, friends, we are back with Mr. Joe Cunningham with Stealth Vision, and I promised we're going to talk about deer hunting, but we didn't. We talked about shooting, so we're going to talk about deer hunting. Joe, I'm going to tell you something, buddy. When I went down there to shoot with you guys, Larry Weissoon and I have been friends for the last 150 years. Joking, of course. Close to it, though. Close to it. And I left with a bunch of new friends. I had a great time, and I got a feeling that's the way it is with a lot of the folks that come down to try to learn about the shooting and the scopes.
It is, Luke. And I want to reiterate something to anybody who'd be interested is, come down and spend a couple of days with us, go through our shooting course, buy guns for sure, scopes. But anyway, when you leave here, you will be definitely you'll have a different feeling inside. You'll be friends of ours. You'll eat dinner with us. We laugh. We'll have a cocktail if you want one. But when you leave here, you will be friends. You will be part of Stealth Vision 100%. And one other thing, Luke, I'm sorry I didn't mention earlier, was I just want to touch base on our warranty of all of our products. This is how much we believe in the product. Is our products are guaranteed, no questions asked. If something was to ever happen to them, if you run over them with your truck, send it back to us. We'll send you a brand new one, no questions asked. You drop the binoculars in the lake, though, and you can't find them with a fishing pole, you're going to be on your own.
That's it. I get it.
But anything else, you send it back, we replace it. No questions asked whatsoever.
You can't beat that. Folks, Joe hunts and lives up in Missouri. There are some big old whitetail deer up in Missouri, Joe, and you've got access to some private land that lets you hunt up there. And you said you've got some I think does the season open up there like the 16th of November?
It opens up November 16th, and I'm very fortunate. I do have a pretty good chunk of land. It's about 1,000 acres that I help cut the hay on and work all the cattle for them up there, and they kind of give me. They've given me free reign of the whole place to run it.
Yeah.
So, but we keep it pretty simple. I've got my girlfriend and a couple of friends of mine that hunt it, and that's it. So we try to manage what we can for it, even if it being 1,000 acres. But I will say this: we have some pretty darn good bucks up there. And I think that all boils down to, the nutrition they get throughout the course of the year. And this year, Luke, let me tell you, you walk through the woods, the whole floor of the woods is covered with white oak acorns.
Ooh.
The acorn crop this year is phenomenal. And some of the pictures we've been getting on the cameras, well, Bridget, she's got her name on about 3 of them.
Yep.
Whichever one comes out first, I got a feeling that she's going to take it for sure.
Target buck, yeah.
No, we do have some very, very nice good deer hunting, and it's an abundance of wildlife there. I'm kind of in southern Missouri, and just very fortunate to be able to hunt the place I do get to hunt.
I've honestly never hunted Missouri. I've hunted a lot up in North Dakota and over in Alberta. Bow hunted a bunch up in the Dakotas, but. We've got our next caller is calling in right now, folks. It's live radio, so let it beep a minute, Joe.
Yeah,
and we'll get back to our talk. But so a mature buck up there, that it'll weigh upwards of 200 pounds on the hoof, won't it?
Yeah, a good mature buck, 4.5 to 6.5 years old. He's gonna weigh 200 pounds plus for sure, especially if they've been getting the nutrition throughout the year. They grow pretty big, pretty healthy for sure.
Yep. Well, do you mostly hunt them? Stand hunt them like we do here in Texas as a rule. How do you hunt them up there?
Yeah, I've got some stands we have built over the years, and a couple of them we put in the sky. They're fairly large. And they're about 18 feet up. Some of them are 6x6, some of them are 8x8.
Yeah.
And I just like to be comfortable because there's nothing for us to go and take a backpack and a cooler and sit all day. From before daylight till after dark.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to be comfortable when you're doing that. It's hard to do when you're sitting and just a climber or something to sit all day. But we like to sit all day at times, especially if you get the pre-rut or right in the rut. It's exciting all day long, and we'll sit all day.
Yeah, just see what's moving. So, do you hunt over feeders quite some up there, or mostly just natural food that you're coming to?
You know what? What I find is, we grain the cattle all the time, and put out good hay. Oh, you find the deer and mineral all the time. You'll find the deer eating that stuff all the time too. So they're getting good mineral. They're getting some grain, leftover grain, and good hay. So I think that applies to nutrition that they get, and the reasons they do grow fairly large bodied and good racks.
Yeah, so you don't have to worry about it. You've got a built-in feeder in a sense, just a natural. What the cattle have to have that food, and the deer probably benefit a lot from that. Plus, those white oak acorns. I don't think there's any better deer attractive. I mean, deer absolutely love acorns. They'll eat red oaks. I mean, we've got a yard full of all around. Well, I live on 5 acres, Joe, and I bet there's I don't know telling how many oak trees, lots of red oaks mostly. But a deer will go to but they prefer white oaks, don't they? They go.
It's a delicacy to them.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, we've got some white oak trees here that they drop acorns the size of golf balls. I'm telling you, they're huge. And the years that we do have acorns, those deer tend to stick in the woods. They really don't come to the fields to graze out there. But when there's acorns like we've got this year, we may have to get in there and get after them in the woods.
You're going to have to get where they are. As far as seasons up in Missouri, and folks listening on podcasts, they're listening all over. But a lot of times we do concentrate on Texas and Oklahoma hunting. But up there, is there a special muzzleloader season? I think there is.
Yes, we've got an early doe season, which is 2 days. Mm-hmm. We've got youth season. We've got a special muzzleloader season. And then we also have our regular deer season. And then in certain counties of Missouri, we've got the CWD program. So that actually where deer can be shot if you're within that county, within that area, and you're on the program, you can shoot deer up into January, February. As long as you give them a brain stem cells for them to test for CWD.
I got you. Well, the land that you hunt, what's the latest in the season that you can be hunting up there?
Oh, you can bow hunt. I believe it's through January, if I'm not mistaken. I don't bow hunt very much anymore because I don't have time, Luke. So I'd have to double check on that season to be sure. But November's the big time for us because of regular deer season. And, just hopefully we get part of that rut within December and get a chance to take a trophy deer.
Well,
we love to eat the deer. So we also shoot does just for the meat.
Yep.
And we go through it. We thoroughly enjoy it.
That's awesome. That's what deer hunting is all about. Well, Joe, I appreciate you being with us. I will remind folks, we talked a lot about in the previous segment on the Stealth Vision, but go to the website, friends, stealthvision.com, and look at the scopes. I think maybe the binoculars are on there now. I'm not sure.
Look, we've got binoculars, spotting scopes, our own proprietary bipods, turnkey gun systems. We offer 3 scope models. We've got a 3x18. We have a 5 and a 5x30.
Right.
And we have other stuff on there too. We'll be carrying in the future. We'll have our own thermals, which are unbelievable. We're in the prototype stage of those right now. We have 2 of them, and we've been using them and checking them out. Speaking of that, I don't mean to throw it, but Doc missed a hog last night. Just how it was, but I had to throw that in.
Yeah, folks, I'm in a studio, and this audio here. Joe is we're on a phone. He's down in East Texas, so sometimes the sound signal gets a little squirrely at times. That's what you're hearing, friends. But that's the nature of getting to visit with Mr. Joe Cunningham. We had a caller come in wanting to talk and get on the radio. We had a little squelch. Joe, I really appreciate you being with us, buddy. And we'll get back, and I want some more input on that Missouri hunting.
Yeah.
Who knows? Old Luke may
my
drift
pleasure,
off.
Luke.
Yeah.
Heck, I'd love to have you up. No, not this year, but next year.
Yeah.
You're more than welcome to come up. We can plan it out.
We'll plan it up, buddy. Thank you very much. Folks, that about wraps our show up for this week. I've enjoyed being with you, and I hope you had a good time, too. This segment was made possible by AGM Global Vision, maker of the Rattler and the Adder, two awesome thermal scopes that I use for all my night hunting. Check out AGM, all the products that they have there online, agmglobalvision.com. And, folks, we're also brought to you by the Choctaw Hunting Lodge up in southeast Oklahoma, located about, 45 minutes west of Hugo, Oklahoma, owned by the Choctaw Nation. It's about 45,000 acres of awesome mountain, country, hills, valleys, loaded with game. Lots of eastern turkey, and they do eastern turkey hunts if you're looking for a spot to hunt turkey in the spring. Also, I want to remind you about the Seneca 50 caliber Dragon Claw that shoots bullets and pellets. And by pellets, I'm talking about 200 and 210 grain lead, chunks of lead. It's a big bore air gun that I use. Check out the Seneca Dragon Claw there at PyramydAir.com.